Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am Jay Cluett, and Mark Hoffmeyer isn't here right now. Don't worry, he is on this episode. I wouldn't do that to you. We wouldn't do that to you. I know this is, you're probably expecting us to start talking about Deep Blue Sea 2 this week, which we have started doing. We have begun recording those shows, and you will hear the first of those next week. No, this week is a special episode. We got the opportunity to talk to John Pogue, the director of Deep Blue Sea 3, and we thought, we could keep this in the can until we start covering Deep Blue Sea 3 in 2 or 3 months' time. But it seemed, we have this recorded now. It's a great interview. He was a great guy to talk to. So we figured, why not just drop it now? So it's interrupting the schedule. And we hope you enjoy it. Just a word of warning. If you have not seen Deep Blue Sea 3 and want to watch it completely spoiler-free, then we would suggest doing so before listening to this interview, because we do talk about numerous elements of the plot, some of the scenes that happen. But if you're curious, then I'd say give it a listen. We don't ruin the whole thing. And also, you should genuinely go and watch it, because it is a great film. I watched Deep Blue Sea 3 for the first time before this interview, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I would highly recommend watching it, especially if you're a fan of Deep Blue Sea. And if you're listening to this podcast and aren't a fan of Deep Blue Sea, then hello, hi, welcome. Anyway, let's get to the interview, shall we? Here's me and Mark doing the normal intro to the show, going into the interview with John Pogue. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am Mark Hoffmeyer.
And I am Jay Cluett.
And joining us is the director of Deep Blue Sea 3, is John Pogue. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I gotta say, Deep Blue Sea 3, so it features sharks and spin kicks, and those are two of my favorite things on this planet. And I love the bull sharks in this. My wife called them big bullies, which I thought was funny as we were watching them. So we were watching that, and then when Bren throws the spin kick, I was all in. I knew I loved I had loved it before, but when that spin kick came in, it made me really happy. So it was just a blast of a film, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks. It's really great to be here and to hear that it was quite controversial at the time, believe it or not, to go with that approach. But it's really great to be. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
You know what I love about that fight? I didn't expect it. Because in the first two Deep Blue Seas, you kind of have just basically the sharks versus humans, and also underneath in labs. This one's drenched in sunlight, which I love. And then there's a beautiful fight, and it just made me so happy. It just came out of nowhere, and it was a surprise like the first one. We got an excellent fight. It's cool.
So there's not a lot of fist fighting at all in the first two films. It is mainly man versus shark. So it's very exciting just to see different things in the shark world. In the Deep Blue Sea franchise now, I suppose. There's not a lot of this film is very deep. A lot of this on the surface, which is so that we take a lot of notice on is how deep and how blue the Deep Blue Sea films are. And this one's not very deep, very blue, but not very deep. So it's good to see. Yeah. Sharks in sunlight is something we haven't seen very much of.
Certainly, literally, I agree with you. I think that for me, we had very high, overblown aspirations for this movie. It's always quite a challenge to sort of follow in venerated footsteps. At least some people feel that way, especially about the original. And so it was quite a challenge to do this movie at the budget that we did with the ambitions that we had. But one of the things I really wanted to do was have a lot of fun and really mix it up and really try to drill down in the tone of the original, which for me, if you have, Jaws on one side and Sharknado on the other of a temperature gauge, this is like right dead in the middle at 90 degrees. But we wanted a movie that was equally absurd and and took itself seriously at the exact same time. And so the fist fight, the whole fighting sequence, I thought about it. I thought it was just like absolutely stupid, but also could be incredibly great at the same time. And we just like we just said, let's go for it. And I cast Bren. I don't know how much you guys know about Bren, but he's like,
the black belt and everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the real deal and a champion. Originally the fight was not between Bren and Eugene. It was between Eugene and two other characters. And once I cast Bren, we sort of got to talking, and I realized what he could do. And he pulls me aside, and he's a very kind of engaging, persuasive fellow. And he's like, look, we could turn this whole sequence, like, look what we could make out of this sequence, which was otherwise sort of more of a genre fight. And I was like, holy shit. I mean, we'd be foolish, not to take advantage of what Bren can do. And so, I was trying to orchestrate the whole fight like directors do. And I was like, you know what? He knows so much more about this than I do. And I basically said, look, Bren, you give me what you think is your best move at the sort of the climax of the action. And he did. And, I mean, it's like I can just watch that over and over again.
Beautiful.
And I really like doing my stunts and action in continuous takes as much as possible, given our budget. Mm-hmm. And so, like just trying to catch that spin kick the way that we did with the guy in the foreground going down, and to feel like it was all happening at once. So you felt the impact. It's just like, he's an amazing guy. So we were fortunate that it turned out all right.
It reminded me a lot of Scott Adkins, and I saw him talking on Twitter the other day with Scott Adkins. He's like, we need to be in a movie together. And then he asked you a question. He's like, what do you reckon about a sequel? And you said, I reckon so. So that got me thinking about Scott Adkins in Deep Blue Sea 4.
Oh, hell yes.
Which I think I would just implode if that happened. I don't know.
You know what? I would implode too. That might be 5, because I think that, or if we brought Bren back, he'd have to be a ghost or a double.
Well, they could do have like metal legs or something. Like he's half robot.
So I completely agree. I actually think the two of those guys in a very kind of primal, Warner Brothers-esque action movie where they could both really act, because I think they're both exceptional actors as well as fighters. They would be, the two of them together would be amazing. Don't think I haven't been scheming to try to figure that one out, because I'm very aware of their interaction, and Scott is, I'm a huge fan of his. So we'll see what happens. Good idea though.
Yeah, Avengement, he's excellent in, Adkins. He really he got a chance to act in that, and I love that movie.
It's a great movie, so contained. The action is just, I mean, it's an exceptional movie. I completely agree with you.
So I've been scanning the IMDb page of Deep Blue Sea 3, and you had a wonderful crew on this film. I mean, I'm looking through here. Your DP is also an AD, which also had to help. So, or your cinematographer, Michael Swan, he's also an AD, which had to have helped, right? On a budget and a timetable. Did that help you out at all?
It was a huge help, and also our cameramen both had some AD experience, and because we didn't have a second unit director, well, let me back up, because that's not true. We did, But because of the way that we kind of split up the responsibilities of the movie, having those guys with their experience was hugely helpful. And I think the big elephant in the room vis-a-vis that discussion is shooting in water, because water and shooting underwater and on a $4-something million budget with 3 major underwater action sequences, it was just a ridiculous idea. But we had these great cameramen. We had Michael Swan with his, he did Black Sails. And so like he knows all about water. We had a really nice tank at Cape Town Film Studios, and we had an excellent group of underwater cameramen / support team called the Frog Squad, Jason Martin and his team, and they shoot, basically all the primo underwater stuff that's shot around the world. They're ex South African SEALs, like super hardcore. Wow. They take such good care of the cast. You saw we were swimming with real sharks for a lot of the movie. And so like, I can't say enough about the South African crew. I've been very fortunate, shot all around the world, and they are like, they are incredible, so gung-ho, and there's an ethos of not accepting no for an answer that must come with the territory down there, being so close to Antarctica and having to sort of survive. And like anything that we wanted to do, they were game, and they were never like, oh, Mr. Pogue, we can't do that. It's like, hell yes, we'll figure it out. And I think there's a saying, a Boer saying, make a plan. Which is whatever happens, you make a plan. I don't know what it is in Afrikaans, but this crew was just spectacular. So like we were very fortunate.
I mean, they got to be hungry. I mean, recently Bloodshot was there, Monster Hunter. They had Tomb Raider, so they're getting the Mauritanian. So they've gotten some dread. Like it's an experienced crew, but I guess not enough productions come down there, so they're still super hungry. Would you say? Like they're experienced, but they're like getting there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I probably don't have enough knowledge to answer that question. I think that what I can tell you, my general perception is, and this is interesting to me, is that they're very experienced and very accomplished filmmakers. They unfortunately have to kind of rely on international to come in for their stories. I think they have a lot of great homegrown stories to be made there, but because of where capital comes from, they're kind of servicing us and our stories, and more than servicing, creating with us, and it would be great to see sort of a homegrown industry come out of all of this experience and talent down there. I think that there's definitely some, but I think that there could be more. So I wouldn't say it's super deep in terms of crew down there. I mean, because there's sort of certain levels that you want to draw people from. So I think that they're extremely talented crew, but it's not like layers and layers and layers. So we were very fortunate with our timing to get such good people.
You got a Hoffmeyer doing visual effects, and I'm Mark Hoffmeyer, so I saw that, and that made me really happy that there's another Hoffmeyer.
Anytime there's a Hoffmeyer, they're in.
Yeah,
that's the rule.
Yeah, I saw what Daniel Hoffmeyer, and I was like, all right, representing for the Hoffmeyers.
Yes.
We're all
very
over the
talented
place. That's cool.
So, John, you mentioned the underwater filming crew. How was it dealing with the actors being underwater?
A super challenge, but made easier by the actors that we were fortunate to work with. One thing that this is the first